Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight's board meeting. For those of you who would like to join us, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America.
Okay, next on our agenda is the adoption of our agenda. I'll call for a motion.
I move that we adopt the agenda for this evening.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, agenda has been adopted. Next, we have a very special section of our agenda, which is special recognition. The first item for special recognition are the Evergreen Awards. And for this, I'd like to call upon Janae Gomes, Executive Director of Human Resources. Janae. Hi.
Is it on? Oh, thanks. Thank you, everybody, and welcome. We're going to start this evening with the Evergreen Awards. And for those of you that haven't been before or aren't aware of what they are, it's a recognition for 3 different groups in Evergreen. One is for classified, a team, and or an administrator, and certificated. So this evening we're going to begin with the group that is a team that was nominated and selected. And when I call your name, if you could come up here, that would be great. So they are from Frontier Middle School. And actually, we're going to start with, yes. We had to readjust, sorry. We're going to start with classified. So Stacy Woolridge, and she is with Evergreen High School. And Lisa Emmerich is the principal and is going to say a few things about her.
Yes, it's appropriate. All right. So Stacy was nominated by Kim Burris, and Kim is also an employee in our district, but I work with her as a parent, and I don't really need to prepare any comments to tell you a little bit about Stacy because I can just speak from my heart. I've had the pleasure of working with her for 9 years. She is one of our team members on our security team, and she has an amazing ability of being able to balance holding students to high standards and expectations and having this really kind and caring and generous nature about her. So students trust her. They go to her for all kinds of support and help. And then she helps us through all kinds of those difficult investigations and things we have to do sometimes as well. One of the things that Kim Burris also recognized is the number of times that Stacy goes above and beyond the expectations of her job to make sure that our campus is safe, that our students feel cared for and cared about, and all of the time representing Evergreen in just a wonderful, terrific, positive way. So, Stacy, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
This is for you, and if you could stay up here, and then we'll have others come to you. Yeah, it'll be just a second. You guys can stay. That's fine. Now we'll do the team. So Frontier Middle School, Anna Sylvester, you can come on up. Randy Bergstrom. And Christy Brooks. Just come probably stand over here. And Ebony is going to say a few things about this team.
I'm going to stand to the side of them so that you guys can see their beautiful faces. So I have the privilege of working with them at school. I oversee science. I'm one of the assistant administrators at Frontier. They put together an awesome science symposium, and it stemmed from last year, Genius Hour. and trying to figure out this unit they were working on, and couldn't figure out, like, okay, what are we going to do? What's going to be the make? This one's difficult. So they said, you know what? We'll let students explore what they want to explore and learn about what they want to learn about. So this year, the title was What Space Got to Do with It? And so anything that pertained to space within that unit, students could research, they could build models, they could give presentations, so on and so forth. And they worked on this for a while. And then at the end, there's a night where the community and parents are invited, and students have to present to them, and they also have to give feedback. So there's collaboration involved with this, there's creativity, there's choice, there's all kinds of things that the students are allowed to do, and they love it. So this is our awesome science team that will continue to put on the Science Symposium at Frontier when it comes to the space unit. So thank you guys for being awesome.
So our third category is for certificated, and we will ask Amanda Pemberton to come up. And Dawn Harris is the principal of York, and she'll be speaking on behalf.
Hi, I have the pleasure of talking about Amanda tonight, even though she is not liking this acknowledgement in the public eye. I've been Amanda's principal for the last 11 years, but we actually go back further than that. We actually used to teach together back at Hearthwood back in the day. But Amanda is an amazing teacher. She does whatever we need for students and for our school. Many times I will come and tap her on the shoulder and said, so will you take a little bit of a risk and be our residency teacher this year with Sam Bennett? And it's always yes, because it's what's best for kids. But Amanda also took a leap, also co-teaching with one of her teammates. And that's just been, I've seen just the happiness that comes with her. But she also took on our green team, and she does this with volunteer hours. She does it because she knows what's great for our community and what's best for our kids. So I'm pleased that Amanda is finally being acknowledged for the amazing work that she does. Thank you.
So these awards are voted on quarterly, and they are nominated by their peers throughout Evergreen and then selected through a committee. And so they should be commended for the work that they're doing and being outstanding and standing out in a way that their peers are recognizing them. So please give one more round of applause.
Whoa.
That's okay.
Close enough.
Are we cozy enough? With the award?
With the award.
Evergreen.
Good. That's great. Congratulations. Thanks for the.
There you go.
with us.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It's really great to hear great work being done for our students. So thank you very much for everything you do on behalf of our students. Okay, next on our agenda, we have a proclamation to read for Music in Our Schools Month. And Director Bocanegra will be reading the proclamation, and for this, would Fine Arts Manager John Nelson come forward? Yes, if you can go ahead.
All right, the proclamation. March is Music in Our Schools Month. Whereas the study of music contributes to young people's development through heightened skills in listening, reading, self-expression, and creativity, and whereas music education in the schools includes a broad range of types of music and active musical experiences, and whereas music and the other arts significantly enhance the morale and quality of the school environment, and whereas it is the stated objective of the public school to prepare children for a productive role in our society, and whereas the National Association for Music Education has designated March 2018 as Music in Our Schools Month, focusing on the theme, Music Inspires. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of Evergreen Public Schools endorses the observance of Music in Our Schools Month as an opportunity to support the purposes and practices of music education and encourages teachers, parents, students, and all citizens to participate. The Board of Education of the Evergreen Public Schools, for its own part, rededicates itself to the maintenance of a music education program that will be relevant to the needs of the children placed in its care and will reach and positively influence each child. And this is signed by our President of the Board of Directors, Todd Usuria.
Always one of our favorite nights of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
And I guess maybe, I'd like to maybe, okay, you didn't want to say anything?
After he's done.
Okay, please, Mr. Nelson, sorry.
okay. As we know, March is Music in Our Schools Month, and this is a very busy month for our music students. Just to give you some idea, today we had our 8th grade vocal festival at Mountain View High School. Tonight we have string festivals going on at 2 of our middle school boundary areas, Y East and Cascade. Tomorrow and Thursday at Evergreen High School, we have high school band festivals going on, or our high school band festival going on, 2-day event. On Thursday, we have our 7th grade band festival at Chehalia Middle School, and we have our 7th grade choir festival at Mountain View High School. This past Saturday at Mountain View High School, we had an event there that was called the All Northwest Regional Band Festival, Music for All Regional Band Festival. And we had bands from around Oregon and Washington that performed. All 4 of our comprehensive high school bands performed, and they were magnificent, absolutely magnificent. The panel of adjudicators, we had college directors, I think 3 different college directors from the state of Oregon. We had one from Arizona, one from Minnesota, that ran clinic sessions and adjudicated the bands. Just to give you an idea of some of the achievements of Evergreen music students this year, the Cascade Treble Choir, directed by Kim Clausen, and the Union Chamber Orchestra, directed by Tim Cease, were both invited to perform for the Washington Music Educators State Conference in Yakima back in February. 17 of our students from across the district performed in various all-state ensembles. In December, the National Band Association named the Mountain View High School Band Program, directed by Sam Ormson and Robbie Rutherford, as a National Blue Ribbon Program of Excellence. And this award is special recognition of sustained excellence over time by a high school band program through a comprehensive application process that includes evaluating recordings, student retention, individual achievement, and other factors. And the National Band Association will have a representative here in Vancouver on Wednesday, May 30th, to present that award at a concert that evening at Mountain View High School, and they will be performing the David Maslanka 7th Symphony, the entire symphony, which is a huge accomplishment in itself. They did 2 movements of that on Saturday. I know Todd was there. It was spectacular.
It was awesome.
And so,
Yeah.
that's really going to be a great evening. In March, we had, the Music for All National Band Festival in Indianapolis. 3 of our high schools were represented. Evergreen High School Wind Symphony, directed by Brent Johnson, performed. The Union High School Percussion Ensemble, directed by Mark Clausen, performed, and also the Chamber Strings from Mountain View High School, directed by Sam Ormson. We're going to hear a trio from that group tonight. I also have a resolution here from the Washington State House of Representatives that I'd like to share with the board, and this recognizes the Union High School Percussion Ensemble as the 2017 WIAA state winner of Percussion Ensemble Division. It's an honor that they've won a number of times. This resolution passed the House on February 2nd, 2018, and recognizes the Union High School Percussion Ensemble for their continued excellence, and I'll let you outline. Our regional solo and ensemble entrants took top honors in 21 out of 27 solo categories this year, and all 14 of 14 ensemble categories. So we're going to be very well represented at the 2018 State Solo and Ensemble Contest at Central Washington University. And so right now I would like to bring Sam Ormson up, and Sam is going to introduce our string trio that's going to perform tonight.
These 3 young men that are about to perform for you, Evan LaFay on violin, Edmund Sue on viola, and Enoch Sai on cello, are going to play the romanza movement of a Dalknani string trio. And the only thing I'd like to kind of point out is in this performance, I had nothing to do with it. They picked the music, and I don't mean that in a self-defense kind of way. Absolute faith in them, but they picked the music, they ran their rehearsals, and they organized everything that you're about to hear tonight. And the first time I got to hear it was in a performance, and trying to enable students to have that sort of leadership and that sort of self-guided learning and exploration of learning is one of the big goals of small chamber ensembles like this, which is an addition to what we do in the curricular day. So without further ado, the Mountain View High School String Trio.
Good job, you guys.
That was beautiful. Just beautiful.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Do we have like the best music program in the world?
Yeah.
Having been in a district that was trying to establish a strings program and was losing music teachers to Evergreen because of its reputation, to be able to come here and see that we have such quality band, strings, choir, drama, all around music programs at every single high school is just a testament to this community and to the students, and it's a privilege to be a part of it.
I wanted to ask them how long they've been playing, and I
stick
might
around.
force them to come back up here, I guess. But how long have you been playing, and you can all continue to play post high school?
And I know you're no
Yes.
slouch either, because I see your
Right.
dad's Facebook post.
Yeah, nice try, Evan.
Yeah, you've been on national TV.
Well, you can tell by the way that you play that you all have a lot of passion for it, and you'll all be very successful moving forward. Congratulations.
Are you going to another concert now? Oh, okay. Okay, good. Okay, good. Well, you're awesome.
Thank you, guys.
That was
Thank you very
fun.
much.
Thank you.
Comments? Any other comments?
I had goosebumps. They were good. Really
That was
good.
amazing.
That's why it's my favorite night every year, because it's always, I'm just so proud of our music program. And, you know, in times when the budget got slashed a lot during the recession, we maintained those music programs, and it's paid off, I think, tremendously for our students. And it just is it's part of our culture as a district. So I'm really proud of the work that our staff do, and our students are just incredible.
Comments?
Two of my kids are in the strings program at Union in the Chamber Select that was in Yakima, and they came back with stories of a standing ovation for their performance. It's one of the things that you could say this about any of the high schools, and the performance performance art that the teachers have been able to bring out in the kids. I can't remember if it was last Christmas or the Christmas before, but Mr. Cease got that Chamber Select Orchestra into the Lutheran Church in Portland to play the Messiah alongside the choir that he sings in. And got to talking to some of the audience members who were not familiar with the music programs in Evergreen, and they couldn't believe it was a high school group. These kids were playing at the top level, and they asked us, how did you do that? How did you get a comprehensive high school group to this kind of level of performance? And I'd never been asked the question before, but what came out of my mouth was, our community really supports music in our schools. Our community wants this for kids. And I'm really glad, because my kids and all the kids that I know that are in these programs are benefiting so fundamentally from the effect of music study on their whole education. Plus, I get to listen to a pretty top-notch violinist going at it in her bedroom when she's practicing or making a recording for her class, and it just brings such beauty to the home to have that kind of playing in it. I really appreciate it.
And it's unusual for districts to have it start in elementary. It's really K-12. So that's why I think some of them are so good, is that it starts so early and they get that foundation, and then once they hit middle school, it really starts to go. So,
And we've heard from some of our parents of neighboring districts and during boundary appeals about one of the things that they want to come to Evergreen for is our music programs, especially how early we have our students instructed.
Any other comments? I guess I'll add my comments as well. I mean, I'm really proud of our fine arts program here in the district. I mean, I think, as we've said, I mean, it's the best fine arts program of any district around. And we do have band, we do have orchestra at every one of our schools starting at fifth grade. So every student has that opportunity. And then the theater and the drama, as you talked about, and the choir. I mean, just all these various programs. I mean, I was so proud to go to the solo and ensemble contest recently and got to see Evan and Enoch play and many other students, and it was just so exciting. And last Saturday I went to the band festival in Mountain View, and yeah, that was a lot of fun. And even this morning I played at a music assembly at Silver Star, and in a way we're through Vancouver Pops Orchestra, we're trying to introduce kids to music at a very early age, say from kindergarten. So I just can't say enough about the music program. And all three of my kids have gone through the music programs in this district, and it's impacted their lives to varying degrees, but it's had a huge impact on their lives and their future. So I can't say enough for the work that Don's done and the work that his staff and the teachers do for our students. So thank you very much. So next on our agenda, continuing on our special recognition, is School Retirees Week. And for that, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Steach, and then we will be having a proclamation read by Director Perkins.
I love the fact that Evergreen combines these into one meeting so that our retired educators get a chance to see the legacy that they've left behind. When you talk about a program like what we just saw, that doesn't happen overnight. And that, like you said, even getting it down into fifth grade, that takes decades of commitment by people who know that sometimes they aren't going to be able to see the final results of their labors over those years. I could talk about how many thousands and thousands of students that our retired teachers have taught and impacted, and the fact that many of the people, several on the board, are products of the Evergreen School District. Several people in the room are products of the Evergreen School District. Speaks testament to the work that you've done. And 2 months ago, I sent a message out to staff, and I said, this year we're seeing probably the most change that the Evergreen School District will see in any one given year, between the technology rollout, the social emotional learning work. There's a lot of changes happening all at once, but the only reason that we're able to do that is we stand on the shoulders of giants. And so I really give my thank you to all of the retired teachers from the Evergreen School District. And it's also special that Don's with Don in the music tonight, because next year Don's going to be sitting in the audience on the other side of this.
Right, Don.
Board had the proclamation.
Okay.
We have the proclamation.
Yeah.
But
From
from the WSSRA.
If we could have representatives from the retired teachers.
If you could please come forward, that'd be great.
On up.
Yeah.
Crap, you all deserve
Yeah.
recognition. What the heck? I want you right over here.
Over here, and then we'll have you
take your picture.
So Director Perkins will read the proclamation.
State of Washington Proclamation. Whereas the Washington State School Retirees Association recognizes all retired school employees. And whereas the WSSRA educates and assists retirees in meeting the special challenges retirement brings and works to improve their general welfare. And whereas the WSSRA aids in advancing education by supporting high educational standards. And whereas the WSSRA promotes group and individual involvement in charitable projects and activities, sponsors scholarships, and maintains interest and participation in educational and community activities. And whereas the WSSRA supports and encourages retired educators to remain active in the education profession through volunteer activities associated with learning. Now therefore, I.J. Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim March 19th through 25th, 2018, as School Retirees Appreciation Week in Washington, and I encourage all people in our state to join me in this special observance. Signed the 17th day of January 2018, Governor Jay Inslee.
So could you introduce yourselves for everyone?
I'm Margaret Schnitzler.
Jody Bugg, 38 years in education. Also, it's not only your favorite night of the year, it's ours. And aside from the fact we are being proclaimed, I think the main reason we come is to listen to the music.
I'm Loretta Babbitt. I had 31 years with Vancouver School District, and I had a granddaughter that went through Mountain View and the junior high and high school and was in music, and she did very well. And I always went to the concerts, and they were very, very good.
I just did it. Yeah, I was so fast you didn't even know. Thanks for joining us. So it's fun to see you guys every year.
Thank you very much. I guess I'd like to make a comment too about the retirees. My mother was is a retired science teacher for many years at the junior high level, and I know she appreciates whenever a student comes up to her and thanks her. And so when I saw a couple months ago my 7th grade teacher at A Casino, I thanked her. She was my choir teacher, and even though I didn't go into choir as a profession or anything, I thanked her because she had such a big impact on my life. And so I know you being in the profession for so long, you've had an impact on thousands of lives. And so I really thank you for all the service that you've done throughout the years.
Send the picture over, though, so they can put it in their
nice.
bulletin, and I'll put it on my Facebook page, too.
Okay, so next on our agenda, we have the board consent agenda. Do we have any discussion amongst the board about it? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
For approval of the board consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the board consent agenda has been adopted. Next is the superintendent's consent agenda. Any discussion amongst the board? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for the superintendent's consent agenda.
I move go ahead, please.
I move to approve the superintendent's consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The superintendent's consent agenda has been adopted. Next on our agenda is the superintendent's report. So I'll turn it over to you, John.
Yeah, so for those who attend our board meetings regularly, you notice that we switched some of the order of the agenda, and we did that tonight because we want to be able to recognize some of our new administrators to get hired into the district and bring them before the board. And this will be the first time that we're able to do that. This last week, I was excited to be able to offer to Miss Leah Torres the principalship of Columbia Valley. Leah came to us from Westland Wilsonville about a year ago and was in an associate principal role split between two schools. Very quickly integrated into the culture in Evergreen, brought a lot of broad experience to our district. And as halftime associate at Columbia Valley and halftime at Furcrest this last year, really helped Scott Eppinger as a first-year principal get on his feet with some of her administrative experience and solidified herself with that Columbia Valley staff. So she went through a fairly arduous interview process, and there was a good pool of candidates. But I'm proud to say that Leah emerged out on top, and after meeting with her last Friday, offered her the position, and the board just approved it. So I think Leah's brought some of her family here as well. So if we could have Leah come up, let's all give Leah's hand as our newest principal for Evergreen Public Schools. What?
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for letting me be here. I'd like to introduce my family who's with me tonight, my husband, Michael, my younger son, Sean, who is here with a soccer teammate because they're headed off to practice right after this.
Whoa.
And my older son, Connor, and my daughter-in-law, Stephanie. And I really couldn't do this deep, heartfelt work without knowing I could come home to them every night. So thank you for being here, family. And I would like to thank Jim Fernandez and the amazing staff at Columbia Valley. Working with them this year and watching their unwavering belief in creating powerful learning opportunities for each and every child is what made me know that this was my home. And I'd like to thank the board while I'm here for your vision and for your explicit belief that no child is expendable. That really shapes our work every day, and I'm grateful that we have that guiding light. So thank you. I'm excited.
Well, congratulations.
I will tell you that when Dr. Steach made me the offer on Friday, I was in a little bit of a blur, but I'm pretty sure I high-fived our superintendent.
Excellent. That is a high five, as tall as he is.
I was sitting.
It's exuberance.
You were sitting.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
We're happy.
Yeah, and as an interesting coincidence, when we were considering Leah for the associate principal, I knew the former superintendent from Westland, Wilsonville, pretty well that had given her her first administrative opportunity. So I called Bill Rhodes and talked to him about it. During intermission at Hamilton on Sunday, Bill happened to be sitting across the aisle, came over, and we had a little chat. And when I shared with him that we were going to be announcing that tonight you were going to be the principal at Columbia Valley, he was not surprised at all and sends his congratulations as well.
Great.
Now I know why Jim's in the back, because he wouldn't just show up at a board meeting for anybody. I could hear.
Well, he comes to every board meeting, doesn't he?
No,
Oh, I guess not. Oh, okay.
We're glad to have you.
I guess this is still my
We're in the back trying to figure out if he cut his hair or not.
Yes.
A couple other things that I wanted to cover quickly in my superintendent report. We recently had a candidate day for open positions within the district. Had a really good turnout, and I commend our HR department for putting such a great event together. We were able to offer some letters of intent and lock some of the best talent in the area into positions going into next year. So our recruiting efforts have really stepped up over the last couple of years, and having been in the classrooms of almost every one of our new teachers this year, it really shows the work that we've been doing. The board is aware that at our last meeting, we were on the eve of the 14th where we were going to have some student-led walkouts. I was at Frontier Middle School that day for additional security if needed. I have to say how impressed I was with our students. While we didn't support or condone the walkout, they were very orderly. They went at Frontier Middle School, went out to the track and stood silently for 17 minutes and went back to class. It was a pretty moving protest by our students. I was also able to participate this last Saturday with many of our students in the March for Your Lives school safety walk down from the Howard House to Esther Short Park, and again was very impressed with our student speakers addressing the multifaceted issue of school safety and really addressing almost every one of those areas and not overly focusing on one area of improvement that we need as a nation. We had a principal for a day last week. A great program that I would encourage the community to look into. You can come be in our schools for half a day and shadow one of our principals and be able to give us feedback as to what you saw. We have more of those coming up in the future. Last Saturday also had Women in STEM event, or Girls in STEM event out at Heritage High School. I was fortunate to be able to kick that off in the morning with the opening address and introduce the keynote speaker. Over 500 young women attending. And it was a fabulous event. A lot of great activities going on, good business representation, and a great way to integrate our young girls into future careers in STEM. I'm sure Jenny's going to talk about the gala later. And just as a heads up, we're continuing to have project launches for all of our capital projects at the individual school setting, kind of our framework for how we as a district are going to be working together with district office, school, construction management company, and how all that integration is going to work together to be able to support all the projects that we're heading down the road on. So that's what I've got for this week.
Hey, thanks, John. Next on our agenda, we have monitoring district operations. And first in this area, we want to talk about operational expectation OE3, community stakeholder relationships, second reading. And the board has received the reasonable interpretation and indicators for this policy. And I guess I'll turn it over to you, John.
Yeah, this is one that we presented to the board at our last meeting in detail, and since that time I haven't received any comments from the board, staff, or the community. So based upon that, at this time I recommend the board accepts the reasonable interpretation and indicators for operational expectations OE3, community stakeholder relationships, as presented for second reading and approval.
Thanks, John. At this point, is there any comments or questions from the audience about this policy? Okay, seeing none, we close the portion of audience question and comments, and I'll entertain a motion from the board.
I recommend the board accept the reasonable interpretation and indicators for operational expectations OE3, community stakeholder relationships, as presented for second reading and approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion about this policy? I know we've talked about it at the workshop. We also talked about it at our last board meeting during the first reading. Do we have further comments or questions? Okay. Okay, yeah, I think we have. Okay, seeing no more discussion, we'll take a vote. So all in favor of OE3 approval for second reading, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the reasonable interpretation and indicators for OE3 has been adopted. Thank you. Next, we have OE8, which is communicating with support of the board. And this is a first reading, and so at this point, the board has received the reasonable interpretation and indicators for this policy, and I'll turn it over to you, John.
Okay, and this will be probably the most exhilarating part of the meeting, other than maybe Mike's budget update.
Really?
So with OE8 in the first reading, what I want to do is be able to cover the entire policy and our interpretation and indicators for the record. So this operations expectation is the board's guidelines for me as the superintendent on my expectations on how I will work with them. The overarching section of this says the superintendent shall assure that the board is fully and adequately informed about matters relating to the board work and significant district concern. Within that, there are a variety of sub areas that I'll read and share the indicators that we have determined that we will use to measure the district performance in meeting those expectations. OE81 is the superintendent will submit required monitoring data in a thorough, accurate, and understandable fashion according to the board's annual work plan schedule and including both superintendent interpretations and relevant data to substantiate compliance of reasonable progress. So annually, I will be providing to the board the annual board work plan from the past year, along with the cover sheets from interpretation and monitoring reports indicating the date and type of board disposition. So we have a series of 12 operations expectations and 3 primary results indicators that we will be bringing back to the board each year. And those cover sheets with those board interactions will become the evidence along with the board work plan. 8.2, the superintendent will provide the board or for the board in a timely manner information about trends, facts, and other information relevant to the board's work. So annually, the board will be provided with a summary document from the previous year indicating the date and time materials were posted to board docs for each meeting, which would show timeliness of providing you information prior to the board's work, which is done in meetings as a quorum. Evidence will also consist of the absence of any board minutes where the board requested to delay a decision based on inaccurate or missing information provided by the administration. So it is my job to make sure you are prepared and informed to be able to make the decisions on your timeline. 8.3, the superintendent will inform the board of significant transfers of money within the funds or of other changes substantially affecting the district's financial condition. So for any significant changes of end-of-year financial position, board minutes will be provided indicating communication of the changes, including the approximate date at which the relevant deviation was identified. An example would be if we see an enrollment drop that's going to drop our bottom line at the end of the year, we will be bringing that information during the budget update that Mike so greatly provides of what those impacts are going to be. So we'll share with you when we knew about it and when we informed you on those issues. Additionally, for any transfers of money within funds in excess of $100,000, board minutes will be provided indicating communication of the change prior to implementation. So anything under $100,000 between funds, I can go ahead and shift. If I go over $100,000, I'll bring it to you and let you know before we make that. Even though I do have the authority to make the change, I want to make sure you're aware of it before I make the change. 8.4. The superintendent will assure that the board has adequate information from a variety of internal and external viewpoints to assure informed board decisions. So for board decisions over the past year where the administration provided supporting information, meeting minutes will be referenced as evidence of input and feedback from all of the board's identified constituent groups. Example would be in the upcoming boundary discussions that we're going to start having on elementary boundaries next year to add a 22nd elementary school. If, as the board identifies different constituent groups that you want to ensure are included in the discussion, I will have to bring back evidence to you of how I involve those groups and specifically targeted individuals to bring them into the discussion. 8.5, superintendent will inform the board of anticipated significant media coverage. And this is really going to be one that you didn't have any surprises over the last year. So evidence would be a lack of instances over the previous year where the board members were surprised by media release or inquiries that could have been reasonably anticipated by the superintendent. And reasonable is that term that we've had in the discussion of the development of these policies. Also, a lack of instances over the past year where the board members were surprised by common concerns shared by a significant segment or specific subgroup of the community. If we have a music program that's concerned about something and I know the music boosters are upset, you should hear from me that the music boosters are upset before you hear from them so that you have a heads up. And that's what that expectation would be. Not that we hopefully never upset the music boosters. 8.6, superintendent will inform the board president, or individual members if, in the superintendent's opinion, the board or individual members have encroached into areas of responsibility assigned to the superintendent, or if the board or its members are non-compliant with the governance culture or board superintendent relations policies. This is the one where you put upon me that if you aren't following the agreements that we've made through these series of policies, I'm also responsible to call it to your attention. So hopefully we won't have that. But I feel that would be covered by the superintendent input on the board's self-evaluation annually. So hopefully that we won't have those, but if we do, and if I bring them up in June instead of bringing them up at the time they occurred, I will not have complied with this. 8.7, superintendent will present information in simple and concise form, indicating clearly whether the information is incidental, intended for decision preparation, or for formal monitoring. So I will be collecting feedback from the board throughout the year, including notes taken during board meeting debriefs, which we do at the end of each workshop. Any constructive criticism relative to board packet materials will be shared as evidence in this area. 8.8, superintendent will treat all members impartially and assure that all members have equal access to information. The superintendent will collect feedback from the board throughout the year, including notes taken during the board meeting debriefs. Again, any constructive criticism relative to inequitable information access or treatment will be shared as evidence in this area. So this is one where a lot of this is going to be on you to tell me if I haven't done this well. 8.9, superintendent will inform the board in a timely manner of any actual or anticipated noncompliance with any board operations expectation policy or any anticipated failure to achieve reasonable progress towards any results policies. So the expectation is for any noncompliance noted in an OE monitoring report, I will include when the noncompliance was reasonably identified and when the board was notified of the likelihood of the noncompliance. And that'll be included in the annual monitoring reports for each of these areas, so that you can tell when I knew about it, when you were told about it, and then when it's formally presented. 8.10. Superintendent will provide for the board adequate information about all administrative actions and decisions that are delegated to the superintendent but required by law to be approved by the board. Since we've implemented this, I put out a policy procedure change summary. I put one out again this morning to all staff, and then we have those available through board docs on the website. So those procedure change summaries from the previous year will be provided with notations of those that reflect changes to areas of board legal responsibilities. So where the RCWs say the board is ultimately responsible, we'll be flagging those for you. Also, board minutes will be included, or the actual communications of significant actions and decisions related to delegated areas of legal board responsibility over the past year. So we will try to collect those throughout the year, that anything that I've done that you've delegated to me. 8.11, the superintendent will inform the board in a timely manner of the administrative disposition of complaints referred to the superintendent by the board. We had discussion on this one that referred to the superintendent by the board is not by individual board members, but by the board as a whole. So when the board as a quorum takes action and refers a complaint to me, I will provide the board a summary of all those formal complaints referred by the board, accompanied with the date of referral and the date of resolution communication. 8.12, we are getting near the end. The superintendent will inform the board in advance of any decisions of additions to or significant modifications of any instructional programs. So either the absence of any significant changes to the direction or implementation of the instructional program over the past year, or board minutes indicating communication of the proposed changes. 13, superintendent will provide professional support necessary for the board to perform its advocacy and community engagement role. This is another one where I will collect feedback from the board throughout the year, including notes taken during board meeting debriefs and any constructive criticism of district support relative to advocacy or community engagement will be shared as evidence in this area. The last one, 8.14, the superintendent will provide all administrative support functions necessary to facilitate the board's governance responsibilities and role. Again, collecting feedback throughout the year, including notes taken during the board meeting debriefs. So that's what we came up with indicators for this. At this time, I recommend that the board accepts the reasonable interpretation and indicators for operations expectation OE8, communicating with and support for the board as presented for first reading, and move it forward for second reading and approval.
Thank you, John.
And we only have one more of these OEs to do, really, and one more results too, but we're getting close.
Yep, and we'll be discussing, one of
Then
those
it's more of a
tonight.
dialogue on the monitoring and the evidence and talking through the evidence and not reading through these.
Yeah, thanks, John. At this time, I'll call upon the audience to see if there's any questions or comments about this policy. Are there any? Okay, seeing none, that closes the portion of audience questions and comments, and I call upon the board for a motion.
I recommend the board accepts the reasonable interpretation and indicators for operational expectation OE8, communicating with and support for the board as presented for first reading, and move it forward for a second reading and approval.
Been moved and seconded. What questions do we have as a board? Or comments?
I guess the only thing, and I'm trying to recall which was about board complaints, I guess, and if we act as a body, but we all get those, certain call us and have those individual, and I don't know if that's addressed under there, because if we take it to you, you'll use it out to a staff member, back to us and let us know that what you've done to take action, but that's not really addressed in that section. Or is it?
Right.
Those, I mean, I feel like those happen
'Cause,
more often than
those-
ones that
yeah.
we take formal action as a board.
And the struggle is, a lot of those are things that should be taken care of at all different levels of this organization. Some of them are things that the parents should just go directly to the teacher. Some of them should go to the principal. Some of them they should go to Scott and Bill or Jay or Chris. And it's getting things to the right level.
And that's usually the recommendation that we make, is to make sure that they've gone through the appropriate chain, going to their, student's teacher, the principal, counselor, whatever that may be, before we take it to that level.
And we could try to collect that. That was a discussion that we had when we were putting this together, is at what point does that... It was really hard to draw a line on that.
I think, oh, go ahead.
I think if it's something very significant, which rarely comes in just a call to us, it's usually handled at where it needs to be. But if we were to receive something of significance, or there seems to be a pattern, then that's, I think, a different conversation. But I think it just is, to me, it's kind of implied that we get communicated with in a timely manner about things of significance that we need to know about, and it doesn't matter where it comes from, that we will, if something happens, we need to know.
Yeah.
And with those, we include you on the response that we give. We continue to include you so you're able to see those. I guess in my mind, the best way to think of that in relation to the OE is, if you feel like we're not taking care of it appropriately, then you as a board would take an action and direct me to do something. Then we can have a discussion of, am I non-compliant in the way I'm handling this?
That makes sense.
So it's not to say that those aren't important, but you get those on a daily basis sometimes.
Sure.
Every time I go to Fred Meyer, somebody's there.
Probably because you won that Iris Award, right?
Yeah. Right.
Oh, yeah.
But but we do hear many positive things about the district too. But there's certain times where people will find our information and call one of us directly, and then we will pass it along for action.
But, an example of the real low-level stuff is, since we went one-to-one, the board has started getting emails from students complaining about websites that are blocked. First couple we shared with you, at this point, we aren't sharing those with you. We're sending them back to, you need to take this to your teacher librarian at your school, and then work through that process to get those cleared.
I even had one student, though, email me directly through my Evergreen address. And so I had responded back to her, and then, included Derek on the message. And yeah, I mean, those are frequent ones where they come through our board mailbox. But
So, Julie, you're okay with the
Yes.
wording of the
yes, because I
policy?
agree with what Victoria said, that if it's a pattern, or if we're hearing something multiple times, it might be a bigger discussion that we would probably want to address and see if there's something.
Okay.
I fielded one of those points of feedback from a Facebook posting that came to my little politician page on Facebook, and forwarded it on to the superintendent only, and got feedback back, but left the communication for that issue with the principal and with, I think, elementary level thing, so it was with Scott and you. When one of us receives that, do the others want to have copies of that communication on the board?
I don't think so.
Okay. Basically, my only question about that, but I agree with the dividing line here, is that in the interpretation of the policy, we're talking about systemic complaints, not individual parent complaints, as long as we can recognize the processes in place for complaints and grievances from students and other stakeholders to be heard. And I have a personal sense that that's happening all the time. I don't get notice of every single one.
And we are in the process of developing a policy relative to parent complaints.
I like the organic way that it's being handled now, and I really like the idea that it's going to be in a separate policy that we clearly delegated to the superintendent.
Yeah, and I think the parent complaint policy in OE is in OE3 that we just approved at second reading.
Any other comments or questions? I had a couple comments. And one is on 8.1, where it talks about supplying a summary of the work plan and then progress towards that. I really like it. And I guess that's sort of the basis that we use for your evaluation, right? So like this year, we'll be getting that, and that'll basically be your evaluation or a huge part of it. So I like how that's worded. And then the second comment I have is on 8.3, where you talked about transferring money of over $100,000. And I wonder if that's still a little bit incongruent, because you mentioned you have the authority to be able to make those changes. But in this policy, it's saying, we need to be involved, communicated with ahead of time before that change is made. Does that still feel a little bit, I don't know, not quite in alignment?
To me, it comes down to what's your definition of significant transfers. Because we're not increasing the budget at that point. We would have to bring a budget extension to you if we were going to increase the total amount of expenditures.
Right.
It's just we've made a determination that from the original budget that we put together, which is a planning document, that partway through the year we need to shift where we're going to apply those resources. Mm-hmm. And if it's more than $100,000, we ought to just at least, whether it's just an email to the board saying we're going to change this from this fund to this fund for this reason, but that we would do that before we would finalize it. So it doesn't have to be brought before at a board meeting or something like that.
Nor do I think he's even happening,
right.
Letting us know.
Okay.
We talked about it in our workshop at the last meeting on how we wanted.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as it's that informal, I guess, because, I don't want to be holding things up.
As we approve reports that contain, post hoc information regularly in the consent agenda, so that makes sense as a piece of the structure. Mm-hmm. I saw Monica Stonier's leave of absence in this report this week. Just one example.
And we can talk later on whether $100,000 is a significant amount out of a $350 million budget.
And it may depend on how often it happens or if we need to adjust it later.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about at the workshop.
Oh, that's right. Okay, sorry.
I thought of it as a big number less than the cost of a new school bus. It's kind of the way I was just thinking about that level.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for the clarification and reminding me what we talked about a couple weeks ago. Any other comments about the policy?
I want to propose a non-substantive change later on. Just remind me that I said that, please.
Not now?
No. It's just a spelling error.
You sure?
Yes. Although I just did it. Thank you very much. It's an 8.1. I'll show you later.
Okay.
It's not substantive.
Okay. Okay, seeing no further comments or questions about the first reading of OE8, we'll now take a vote to accept it as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so OE8, communicating with and support for the board, has been accepted as presented for a first reading, and we'll bring it forward at the next board meeting for a second reading and approval.
With the spelling correction.
With that, I'm not it's mysterious, but okay.
I'm just going to make a habit of this.
Okay. So next on our agenda is the good news report. And for that, I would like to call forward Gail Spoler, Director of Communications and Community Relations. Gail?
People should be impressed that she only comes here with good news and never bad. Unlike Mike, sometimes his report.
So many of you were at the gala on Saturday night, and where we recognized the Educator of the Year. I think they're always good, and it's always a wonderful presentation, but I think this year, recognizing a 36-year veteran of our district, Don Rasmussen from Union High School, I think this one is also very different too, because a lot of times they're nominated by adults. This recipient was nominated by his entire AP class, and you see the photo there, and a number of them were there Saturday night. So a nice award, a nice presentation, and of course he's holding his check where he will be able to spend money on things that he needs for his programs. Chehalis Middle School math students took home the first, second, and third place trophies at the Southwest Math Counts chapter competition, And the individual competitors, 8 of the 9 top placing were students from 4 students from Heritage High School's Digital Arts program were finalists in a logo contest sponsored by Clark County Parks Advisory Board. You see them pictured there with a number of the Clark County Council members. Heidi Hayden, her design was the one that was chosen by the board, and they were coached, and the project was worked on by our digital arts teacher at Heritage, Troy Wayron. And so you'll start seeing that popping up out in the Clark County parks. Our Evergreen High School Special Olympics Unified Basketball team placed second in the state. If I remember correctly, it doesn't say it here, but I believe there were 3 overtimes and they lost by 1 basket. But second place in the state is a wonderful achievement. Right below them, you see a long list of our talented students who received recognition at the Educational Service District 112 Art Awards. They were competing against students in school districts from 6 different counties. Some of those award winners will go on for the state competition. And you also see a new one this year where there was a scholarship award to Central Washington University also presented. Congratulations to the Cascade Middle School Knowledge Bowl team. They won the 2018 Greater St. Helens Middle School District Champion. The Union High School students in their physical education classes celebrated Heart Healthy Awareness Day, educated students about heart disease and how to prevent it, and through diet, exercise, getting more sleep, and finding healthy ways to decrease stress. We should have all been out there, not just to Union High School students. Look at that picture of Sean Knight. Remember that. I'm sure we'll be hearing about him in years to come. Scored a perfect 36 on his AC. Heritage High School varsity soccer boys volunteered their time handing out T-shirts to participants of the 30,000 participants at the 40th annual Shamrock Run, which benefits Dornbecker, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the Shamrock Run in a minute.
Personal experience, huh?
Yes, and yeah, there's others in the audience too that can pipe up. Rowan Segura, a senior at Heritage High Schools, received a scholarship in order to participate in a speech debate forensics team. She's been to state 4 times for interpretive reading, public forum, debate, dramatic interpretation, and she was the 4A district champion for interpretive reading this year as well. Back to the Shamrock Run. We had more than 100 participants on the Evergreen wellness team participate. They walked, ran. Some of them ran a long way. Part of it was a half marathon down to the Shamrock Stroll, which I did participate in. Walked and not so much, but there were 100 of us. And the reason that's important is we qualified to be a super team, which meant that $5 from every entry went back to the foundation, so $500 check. And then Providence Health Plans also sponsored our T-shirts. So we had a great time, raised some money, got some exercise. And speaking of encouraging exercise, the Wellness Committee also has been participating in donation and drive for used sports equipment that will benefit our students. We have a number of partners assisting us as well. Parks of Clark County, Nautilus, PAL, Clark County Realtors, IQ Credit Union, Clark College, and DeWills. And so we've been all collecting equipment, sports equipment, so our students are able to have sports equipment and gear to participate in sports both here in the district and then outside of the district and other activities. And that is your good news.
What's the board got to do to be on the super team?
Pardon me?
What does the board have to do to be on the super team?
Well,
we bowl too.
Yes. Well, we can go ahead and send out the invitation to do that. It's a lot of fun, especially if you walk rather than run.
I would be in the strolling category.
Yes, and it's a great stroll.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Gail. Next on the agenda is our budget update, and call upon Chief Operating Officer Mike Merlino. Mike.
Start with a little good news.
How you doing, Mike?
Good. Great. We passed a bond here in February.
Yeah.
$695 million, I think. And Sue's, you're familiar with that?
No way.
About $800 million in total. So that's some good news. Just wanted to get that out there. So every month I come and make a presentation, and we are to the point in the year where, for the most part, the year is pretty well complete. I mean, in terms of enrollment through March, so we're 70% of the way there. So you can see the document shows the indicators. Within OE8, it talks about notifying the board of any kind of substantive changes throughout the year. We have been, throughout the year, talking about the enrollment, and I think that would be an example of one that we would be talking about. But I think right now we're looking to be somewhere around 400 kids below what we had projected, which, again, I mean, we're talking somewhere around 25,000 kids, so 400 is still, it's a pretty small percentage. But 400 kids is in elementary school. So it was significant to us. At this point, we still expect the year to be right around a break-even year for us. I think last month I mentioned that a key piece still was understanding how OSPI was going to treat a transportation grant that really was created to help districts like ours that were underfunded. We're working with them, continuing to work with them and helping them remember why they did it. And so I think over the course of the next month or so, we'll get an answer on that. So we'll continue to update. This would be the initial notification that we weren't real happy with the first response we got from them, but we got them to stop the process so that they could revisit the process and hopefully come to the right conclusion. That's if you understand what I'm saying there.
There's a difference in interpretations.
Well, there's just a difference in people implementing the grant than the people that created it. And so we're having to work a little harder to get them to recall why they did it in the first place. Fortunately. And so we will be working with Melissa and Marcia and anyone at our disposal to make sure that that happens. But as of right now, as we've been saying all year long, the impact, really the biggest impact on the year was just related to the enrollment. There are changes here and there throughout the year, but for the most part, that's been the most significant. We're fortunate. We're still believing we'll be pretty close to break even this year. And as far as next year's budget is concerned, we talked a little bit last I think 2 weeks ago about what was in the final package. I think the governor today vetoed a couple sections. One of the sections that he vetoed was related to implementing the new enrichment rules around having to have sub-program coding for the enrichment levy versus the old M&O levy. OSPI really wasn't at a point in time where they had the programming appropriate to be able to deal with that. So I think that was the right thing to do, no question. A second was the legislature had voted in their final budget to delay the implementation of professional learning days. So there are 3 days that they ultimately will fund. Because they had accelerated the salaries, they wanted to delay the first day until not 1819 but 1920. And the governor vetoed that section, saying, no, we're going to implement the first of the 3 days starting in 1819. So that was something that honestly, I don't know whether we expected or didn't expect it, but it is something that happened. We don't believe that the actual F203, which allows us to start doing the revenue estimates within the district, will be available to us for at least another 2 or 3 weeks. But still, that's probably somewhere around the middle of April versus somewhere around the middle of July. So we should have a budget in a very timely fashion. The budget for next year, as I said a couple weeks ago, really shouldn't be difficult to put together from the perspective of the acceleration of the salaries. But we will keep working on that, and we will certainly keep you informed on the resolution of the grant process on the transportation funding this year. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a question.
Is it substantive?
Yes. Just keep going. That's great. You got jokes.
I'm just kidding.
The unreserved fund balance prediction is slightly below 5%. Can you talk about that a little?
At the end of the day, we'll be at the 5%. So the ending fund balance is always based on the previous year's expenditures, 5% of that figure. At this point in time, I'm more focused right now on where we think we're going to be breaking even, and we have flexibility within the reserves between the designated and unreserved reserves to kind of move dollars around. So I'm not concerned about that happening. I'll make sure that when I do this next time that it's over 5%, so you don't have to ask the question next time.
Any other questions? Hey, thanks a lot, Mike.
For those who can't see, it's 4.94%.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, not substantive? Is this what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
Hey, next on our agenda, board comments. What comments do we have?
Well, I wanted to just mention that last Saturday there was just so much going on. It was quite the day, but
Is this where Ginny stands up?
not yet. I'm
Oh,
going
okay.
to talk about the march. She's going to have her moment in the sun, though, in a minute. But, you know, I'm with John. I was there at the Esther Short, and it was so inspiring. And, you know, I watched the one in Washington, D.C. I recorded it so I could watch it, and that was incredible. But the kids that were here in our own town were amazing as well. And I was so impressed with the community turnout. And it wasn't just a lot of high school students. There were older, even older than me, people there. It was nice to see the community come to get behind this and to really rally around our kids. So I thought that was exciting. And then it was the gala, and it was really fun. And Ginny, you need to be commended for putting together a really fun event that I'm sure raised a lot of money that you could share with us. But thank you for all your hard work on that. I had a really good time, and people were enjoying themselves, you could tell.
It was very well attended. I think, was it the most people in a long time that have attended?
We sold out, and we actually had 255 attendees check in. Sure. First, I unfortunately wasn't able to attend the national event on Saturday because I was putting the gala together. So even though I was down the street, I unfortunately wasn't able to attend. So I had to watch people's Facebook the next day and kind of live vicariously through other people. But the gala. So the gala, I do have preliminary numbers. Unfortunately, I think I should probably share those with the foundation board members first before I announce that out to everybody. They are still preliminary. I'm still waiting for expenses to come in, but our income has been pretty much, and we hit it out of the ballpark this year, higher than we have in all 6 years that I've was on the foundation board. So I'm very, very proud of that. It was an amazing event. Not very many people scolded me afterwards for basically getting up and telling everybody to be quiet. I did get a lot of compliments, though, that, you know, I must hang out with a lot of teachers, because I had no shame in going up there and taking the mic from the MC and telling everybody to pipe down.
Little crowd control.
I did, too. I had to. But yeah, no, it was a great event. I want to thank everybody that came out and supported us, and hopefully you guys had a lot of fun, and we'll come back next year.
We did have a lot of fun. I know that we have some administrators that will be doing the CUV cycle.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Wow, yeah, that was awesome.
I don't know how Jay feels about it.
Right by my office, so let
I
me
did
know
opt
when
in
you're
if
coming
someone
by.
can't attend that I would go with you guys.
I think that was my favorite part of the whole night, was watching Jay's face when that bid was going back and forth. Yeah.
We had some good back and forths with those bids, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. I think the Mickey Mouse ears,
that was funny,
was the biggest one.
That was good.
A little
But then
confusing
the
for
furniture
some.
that John made, that went for a lot too. Great job, John.
We actually had to transport that back to the administrative office on Sunday, so up from here. if they haven't already. Last viewing, I
Good.
should have let you know it was in the hallway so you could, view it
I was
one
in my
last time
office for over a
before.
month.
Any other comments?
Yeah. And you?
I was just going to mention, John touched on it in his report, but Principal for a Day, it's always a great event because we get to hear from our, business leaders about what they enjoyed about their visit in the schools. But this year it was kind of unique because we had one participant asked if she could now visit a middle and high school. And we had, I think for the first time, I know in my history on the school board, he wanted to go back to the school and
Yeah.
finish out the rest of the day.
And
I
he
don't
did.
think that's ever happened
Yeah.
before. That was really cool that they're enjoying the experience so much that they want to come back and they want to spend the whole day, and then they want to share it with people in the community about what great work is happening in our schools.
I have one more thing.
Go ahead.
So I actually had the pleasure of being with John at Frontier on the walkout day. We were actually scheduled to do a school tour, so we were doing our school tour in the middle of it. But watching the middle school students quietly and calmly walk out to the track, the district had some safety precautions to keep the kids going to the main roads. Not one kid even tried to go that direction. They all went out to the track. They did one lap around the track, and then they formed a circle and held hands, and they sat there silently. And as a mom of a sixth grader, to watch those kids do that, well, I was beyond impressed because my sixth grader can never keep quiet. But just, I think all of us that were standing out there got a little emotional just watching them organize and stand there quietly. So I was in awe of all of the students that participated. And yeah, we weren't there to support, or we were just there, and just to be there, just to make sure as a parent and as a board member, to make sure that they were safe and they were doing what they were doing in a safe environment. And I got a little teary-eyed.
I've never seen anything like that in my lifetime. Never. Counted about 3,000 students, give or take, was the number that you came up with. I was on 18th during the 10 o'clock hour and saw Evergreen's gathering and pulled over to keep watching. I was really impressed with that organization. And Rob was there too. We stood outside the property lines and
I
just
saw
watched
Rob.
them.
I honked home.
Yeah. And just how astounding it is to see students organize in such numbers, and see them appropriately advocating for change. Take the unexcused absence as a hit and go say what you need to say anyway is an exercise of a First Amendment right, and they deserve all the credit for that. I was really impressed. I didn't get to go to the Saturday march. I was planning on it, and then ended up with a schedule change when someone that I've been trying to get a lunch with for years finally had an opening. His name is Scott Rushing, Compass Oncology, and he was teaching at the Women in STEM event, so I ended up there instead to see the 500 girls and all of the exhibitions, and see Ted Feller, remember Ted, and he works here. Works for Susan. Now I'm blanking on his name. Sorry. No, Ted's with the ESD, but our one of Susan's direct reports.
Corey?
Not Corey. John Akers. Yep. He's also there, just managing it all, and to see. I had already met some of the teachers, so I watched Dr. Rushing and one of his PAs, Marissa is the first name, teach girls how to suture. He brought in chicken and cut it open for them so that nobody had their hands on a scalpel, but then they were taking the sutures and learning how to do that. I never had opportunities like that. It's just wonderful to see that kind of thing. I watched Sean Perez as a marketing teacher teach girls how to engineer packaging for a product. It apparently was one of the activities that she presented to her advanced marketing class. The third one was my son's robotics team was also there, and they had a bunch of these little Sphero robots that they taught the kids how to program. And that's just like 3 examples that I was able to see in the short time that I had of a slate of 20, 25 classes, little workshop classes that they were able to attend. And so they had lunch, they had a panel discussion, they had a keynote. It was a conference for women in STEM, and I hope it can grow. It was really good use of Heritage High School on a Saturday, and really heartening to see the interest that people have in it and the potential that's there. With respect to the marches, I forwarded the resolution that we passed. I forwarded the thing that we passed up to WASDA, and Tim Garshow responded with happiness. He was really impressed with what we were able to develop, and we discussed it in the last legislative committee update as well, because school safety is on every educator's mind statewide, just like it is on the kids. And the kids are leading off, so we don't have a choice but to respond. And I was able to share that conclusion about how holistic our approach to school safety is, and how we need to consider all solutions and not just the ones that are getting airtime in the national media. So they were impressed with that. And then lastly, in connection with my role in leadership Clark County, I had some conversations with school administrators in Vancouver and in Evergreen. But our Evergreen teachers in the CTE track have volunteered to use classroom time connected with their curriculum for my group's LCC project, and a student has volunteered to make one of the videos that we were planning, and then a group of other students volunteered to do a second one, and finally we just sent them all the ideas that we'd come up with just to see what they'd come up with themselves. That it really showed that our teachers are interested in these meaningful projects for kids, and they want to fold that into the curriculum. I was really happy to see that, and the teachers' names, that Sean Perez, Troy Warrenan, Adam Strong, were CTE teachers at Heritage, and Scott Wistrand as the video production teacher at Evergreen, just enthusiastically embraced the idea that they could help the community this way and do that. I wanted to publicly appreciate that. That's all I've got.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Anything else on comments? I just want to congratulate you again, Jenny, and the rest of the Evergreen School District Foundation for putting on such a great gala, successful gala. I still don't know how you do it, being head of that gala and being on the school board, amongst many other things. So
I actually do have a job, too.
That's right, you work, and you're a mother.
And she's a mom.
Yep,
Yes.
that's huge. So thank you very much. I don't know how you did it, but thank you. Next on our agenda, future agenda items. Do we have any to bring up? Okay, seeing none, we will be going now into recess to sign papers. After the recess, we'll have a board workshop in the large green conference room where we'll have a discussion about financing plan, discussion on career pathways, operational expectations 11, instructional program, board meeting debrief. We'll also have a legislative update and a superintendent's update. Thank you very much for coming tonight. We are now in recess.